All right, we're going to go in reverse here and start with the post-fight action. According to UFC president Dana White, Austin was a success. Monster gate and attendance. In fact, it was the biggest gate ever for a fight night in the USA. And White rolled out 50K bonuses for every fighter, plus fight of the night. Salute UFC and Dana White. But at some point, the happy boss seemed to get a little agitated when asked about PFL-Bellator and the PFL saying their roster is comparable to the UFC's. In fact, it was our own Matt Wells that was on the mound at that moment. I guess White thought that you were brushing him back, Matt. Anyways, my question to you guys to start things off. Guys, do you think Dana White and the UFC are threatened by the new #2 MMA promotion? Matt, we go to you since you were there, man.
Yeah, I mean, to start off to your points, I will agree. You know, the event itself was amazing. It felt like a huge event. All the numbers kind of show that, right? But yeah, like you said, after the facts, you know, I asked him about PFL buying out Bellator, and he kind of took exception to it. I'm not sure if Dana is more so feeling like a threat of that merger, so to speak, or if he's just kind of annoyed at these questions, because obviously, like the UFC is still number one in all of these things, right? But yes, I mean it's still a valid concern when you have two companies that were considered number two, number three joining forces, right? I mean, just look at these names that they have under their roster. I mean, the Bellator side, you have Patchy Mix, Vadim Nemkov, Johnny Eblin. These are all their champions. Ryan Bader. These are guys that could come over to the UFC and pick up wins over top competition without a doubt. I mean, Usman Nurmagomedov, Pitbulls, Jason Jackson, Amasov. PFL has very respectable names as well. I mean, Larissa Pachenko, Renan Ferreira, Jesus Pinedo just won the championship this year. OAM, who was a UFC vet. I mean, Jesus Pinedo was also in the UFC. He had one fight there as well. Magomed Karimov. These are all very talented fighters. So the roster is there. It's a very solid roster. It's not on par with the UFC's just yet. It's not as deep, but they have very respectable names there. And I think that maybe, if anything, the UFC is kind of having to, you know, turn their head and look at that a little bit. But in terms of business and, you know, arenas and things like that, I don't think they're worried about that too much because, you know, to Dana's point, like he said, you know, what are their numbers like when they're running arenas and stuff like that? What are their ticket sales? Yeah, they're not nearly comparable, but they are building something and they have the opportunity to grow into something bigger after this PFL move. So it's going to be interesting to see how things play out, obviously, over the next year or two and see what kind of momentum they can get going. But I think at this point, like right now, I think Dana's kind of a little bit more annoyed that, you know, hey guys, we're still number one. We're still UFC. We're still on top of these things. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's something that you have to address and you do have to acknowledge, hey, they're making moves.
Mm-hmm. Did you think, Matt, that in any way he was unfair, I guess, and I wouldn't say attacking you, but kind of like trying to light you up, you know, for asking the questions? I mean, I think media like to ask questions that the fans are wondering.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to do. I mean, obviously, these are questions that fans want the answers to, right? And I think that was most of the questions that I did ask him on that night were stuff that fans want to know about. I think he did try to come at me a little bit, but I mean, he tried to take it to a place where I wasn't trying to go as well. Like I wasn't trying to get into the weeds about ratings and stuff like that. One, because we don't have those clear answers. Networks hide the true numbers from us. Try to get an accurate rating from ESPN Plus or Showtime or something like that. It's just not happening. So I wasn't trying to go there with him. I was just trying to get his general thoughts about things. If you go back and watch that clip, I tried to move on from that question twice, but he kept going back in, kept going back. So it is what it is. But yeah, I think he did try to come at me a little bit, but you know, it is what it is. I wasn't trying to go back and forth with him either. I was just trying to get an answer. I was happy with his first response when he said he wishes them well. I was like, cool. All right. So on to the MVP thing is what I was trying to get to. But, you know, Dana's going to do his thing. Sometimes we've seen him do that to multiple reporters before. I don't know if he expected me to try to actually answer him or not, because sometimes reporters don't actually answer him when he throws questions back. So, you know, I just had a little playful banter, I thought.
Was that your final interaction of the night with him, or at some point when it was over, was there a finger point like a, it's just the game or anything like that? I guess.
No, I mean, after that, I threw two more questions at him, and he seemed pretty receptive to those, I guess. But yeah, he definitely seemed a little bit agitated by the PFL question.
Mm-hmm. Dan, Tom, what do you think, man? So, just like all of us, we've covered the sport for a while. We've seen a lot of Dana White reaction to a new promotion. It's not the first time. What do you think, man? Do you think in any way he's threatened by the new #2 MMA promotion?
I don't think he should be threatened, but like the way he is answering Matt, he's definitely agitated, right? And I just want to give props to our colleague Matt there, for standing his ground, but still being completely respectful, professional. Just kind of like everything you want to see, whether it's coming from a colleague like myself or the fans and the audience out there. I know you guys are really critical of media, and that's fine, but like appreciate when people do a good job. So a hat tip to our guy Matt there. But as far as Dana goes, it seems kind of silly to be so upset, not just because of all the facts that we know and that Matt did a great job laying out there, but the other dynamic I guess I'll introduce is the lawsuit right now for a monopsony. And it just really seems that I got to imagine the lawyers are cringing every time Dana White gets out there and just makes these chest flexing comments, which is not abnormal for Dana White. But again, the particular topic, the way he's getting upset and really looking at the big picture, maybe, especially as a pro-capitalist guy, like maybe you should, embrace the competition here a bit, and instead of, making, the monopsony case kind of look like apples and apples right now. But that's just my 2 cents. It seems kind of silly. And I do wonder if like the higher ups and brass are like, Dana, take it easy, man. Come on.
I echo what you said, Dan. First of all, in terms of props to Matt Wells, I've seen those interactions over time, and there's times where a reporter just shuts down, and Matt kept doing his jobs, pushing through, and like he said, another series of questions later on. But for folks that don't understand, it's not our job to go back and forth with him. It's our job to ask the questions and move on. Sometimes Dana makes it personal, and that's just part of the job. All right, Goes, how about you, man? You got a psych degree. Read into this guy. Worth $500,000, successful promotion, crushed yet another gate for a fight night, all that stuff you heard. But yet, man, he lets a question that's, part of the big news cycle in the last 2 weeks kind of ruin his day a little bit, and then he kind of makes it a little bit personal. What do you think? You think he feels threatened?
I don't know that he feels threatened. I think he just feels like, why can't people just give me my props for what I've done? What he's done has been completely amazing. But when people bring up these little topics, it does tend to bother them. And I think it doesn't have to really do with the situation. I bet you a lot of it comes from just what happened with Francis Ngannou not too long ago. That was not a good look for the UFC, right? And that's something that every time it gets brought up, it pisses them off. And I think it's just that thing that where he's on a high and he's happy about what happened tonight, and then he gets asked that question, and it takes him somewhere else that really it shouldn't. It's a valid question. I think if you're the UFC, maybe you should feel a little threatened, but not that much. I mean, people aren't going to stop watching the UFC and watch PFL-Bellator instead. They're not going to lose viewers to them. What they may lose a little bit in a threat to them could be maybe like contract negotiations going forward, right? What's going to happen when you have a fighter that has like a 5-6 fight win streak? Sometimes they get as high as like 10, 12 fights in a row. Are you telling me they're not going to sit there and go, man, if I did this in PFL, I'd have $2 million in the bank, right? They're going to complain a little bit more. They're going to be more inclined to maybe leave and go to a PFL and try and pick up $1 million or fight in a Grand Prix, whatever it is they're going to do moving forward. I think fighters will maybe try and use that leverage a little bit. Some of the stuff that Francis Ngannou was able to do, go and box, right? We don't, other than Conor McGregor, we don't really see that too much with the UFC. So I think in a way, more than anything, the PFL is going to annoy the UFC and they're going to annoy the brass. And after a while, when you combine two rosters like that, you're going to put on some pretty decent fights. They're going to have some victories. They're going to have some good nights where we're all spinning Back Clique on Monday. The first thing we're going to talk about was that crazy PFL card where some of them Bellator fighters came over and put on a great show. And I'm sure if you're the UFC and you tune in, you're going to be like, man, why are they talking about them? They should be talking about us. Look at our gates. Look how many people are showing up. I think they're going to pester them, but I don't think it's to the point that Dana needs to react in that way. Because of his reaction, that's why we're here talking about this right now. If he just would have kind of gave Matt a softball answer and just said, hey, look, good for them. They'll do their thing, but we're over here. We're crushing it. We're doing that. We probably wouldn't be talking about this right now, right? And that's what I don't understand about Dana White. Sometimes I feel like he's his own worst enemy in that sense.
What's funny is they kind of did do it, and then he hesitated, and then something boiled within him, and he had to attack the ratings and their attendance. But I was thinking, because I was watching this live, I was thinking recent news was that ESPN re-upped with PFL-Bellator, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that's your partner.
Cutting over me.
What's that?
I was trying to get that part out, but he kept jumping over me as well.
Yeah, they just re-upped with the PFL-Bellator and PFL. I'm joking, right, guys? But they just re-upped with them, so they must think something of their ratings. I highly doubt that on Mondays in Bristol, Connecticut, they say, "Hey, I got a sharp business move. Let's re-up with a promotion or a sport that's not bringing some eyeballs." I mean, that just wouldn't happen, right? That's their partner, and their partner just made that decision. By the way, this is their 5th year, I believe, with PFL. So there's got to be something to that. Now, I'm not saying Dana White is wrong about gates, attendance, things like that, but I don't know. It just seems so. We give this guy praise for being an awesome promoter, for doing incredible things in the sport, and at the same time, I just feel someone that's been in the sport for that long should be so savvy at taking these questions that it shouldn't really agitate them at this point. Now, as I say that, look, I've seen LeBron blow up, Jordan, Brady. You get the same question a certain amount of times. I guess it's like, how many times do I have to cover this? But he's not for sure that Matt was at the press conference that he covered it the first time. This is a different media member that's getting access for the first time, maybe just following up.
But he's not getting asked that question while he's at the Olive Garden, right? Leave me alone. I'm having dinner. Not that I go to the Olive Garden, but you know what I mean? He's getting asked that at work. That's his job. That's where he's going to get that question. Yeah. And not only that, he should be expecting that question. So if anything, it's not like he's sitting back on, oh man, I can't believe they brought that. That's right. That just happened. He knows it's coming. He should have something already prepared, but he lets the best get out of him. Like the worst, sorry. It just, the moment gets the best of him, man, and that shouldn't be the case.
Here's how you guys know it was bad. When I went to rewatch this, of course, I did it on the MMA Junkie YouTube channel. Give this a like, if you're watching, or make sure you're subscribing to that channel, of course, guys. But if you look at the comment section, the YouTube comments are never a kind place, much less to the media. And even like the Dana, it's bad because even the Dana White fans lately in the comment section are like, Dana, I'm the biggest Dana fan, but man, what's going on with this guy lately? Like, what is going on? Like. So we're not alone here, folks. Even as staunchest supporters, we're like totally like, which is great, as they should be. We're totally giving Matt his props, and we're like, what's going on with Dana here? So we're not alone in this.
Yeah. And one last thing I want to throw out there as well. I've seen a couple of people, again, the comments, right? Comments are going to be comments, saying that, why are you asking about PFL? I mean, it's a very relevant question to ask about what's going on in the MMA space to the biggest promoter in the sport. It's a very relevant question, especially when those are two companies, like they sign UFC fighters. Sometimes we'll see the UFC pick up some of their fighters. It's a very relevant question. So anybody saying that, don't be silly.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna if you're a top name, you're gonna hear questions all the time. Imagine Lionel Messi wins the World Cup in Argentina, and so they're asking him questions there in Qatar. When he gets back to Argentina, someone's going to ask him about that World Cup and that win. I doubt he's going to say, you didn't hear what I said in Qatar? I thought I covered this. I mean, this is huge news. And like Ghost said, spin it in a way so that it maybe helps anything that you have that's ongoing. Hey, competition's good. They have some quality fighters there, some that have been with our promotion, and maybe some that one day will be in the promotion. Who knows? There's got to be some stock answers after 25 years of covering the sport where you can just go out there and deal with this. Look, young Barry Moore in the chat is saying, asking Dana White about the PFL is like asking a buddy, have you seen your ex-girlfriend, knowing she's really looking fine and doing really good now? Nuru says Dana White knows he fumbled the Ngannou boxing bag and hates any PFL reminders too soon. Ha ha ha. Folks, if you want to submit questions and comments via the chat, I will do my best to get to as many as I can. And obviously, the better they are, maybe the funnier they are. Touch of humor is never bad. I will see if I can sneak them in. You can address the guys personally or just throw them out in general. King of all Chad says you're at a UFC press conference. Why talk about stuff that isn't UFC? Okay, take that one on, man. What do you think of that comment? Not that we haven't, I guess, kind of touched on it already.
Yeah, that's kind of like to what I was just saying, right? Because these are two relevant things. PFL and Bellator joining forces. They're now the solid number 2 in the space. And like I said, UFC will sign the best talent available, right? They picked up Michael Chandler from Bellator, so like they're obviously paying attention to what's going on there. So yes, why would I not ask about the second biggest promotion in the MMA space right now? I mean, that's a very huge move. It's something that could change the landscape of the sport in the next few years coming up, depending on how this new look PFL, this new look Bellator progresses from here. So it's a very relevant question.
Yeah, they picked up Eddie Alvarez. They picked up Ben Askren. People have come over from other promotions as well. They tried to recruit with Kayla Harrison. It just didn't work out, but it's not like they don't keep an eye on it. So